Okay, Assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you guys can hear me. My name is Ahmed Faris, founder of Crowdfunding. Today we have a special guest, Samani.
Assalamu alaikum everybody. My name is Amani Kilawi and I am the COO and co-founder of launchgood.com.
Inshallah. So we get to know more about LaunchGood today and how to launch your very own social project. So first of all, introduce yourselves in the chat. We're starting in exactly 4 minutes. Tell us your name, where you're calling from. Maybe if you have a social project you're working on, let us know about it, inshallah ta'ala. Just chat in, what's your name, where you're coming from, what social project you have, inshallah.
Cool.
MashaAllah, is it from Nigeria? Thank you. Jazakallah khair for joining us. We have today we have a really, really global audience. We have over 500 people registered for this webinar. So I'm really excited to have people just from around the world, inshallah ta'ala. MashaAllah, Sidra from Nairobi.
Very cool. USA, France.
You got St. Louis, from Ashley from St. Louis, mashallah. Fal from Tanzania, mashallah, Jambo.
France, awesome.
Hiba from Oman, excellent.
It's always exciting to see how global the Muslim community is. I think sometimes we forget.
Unbelievable. And this technology always fascinates me. The fact that we're here just giving this webinar and people are joining us from all over the world. It's great, mashallah. Najwa from Saudi, Jazakallah khair, assalamu alaikum. Kina from Malaysia, Sarah from the UK, Farjana from New York. Bina Bakar from Mauritius. Wow, I always wanted to go to Mauritius.
Very cool. Dallas, California, amazing.
MashaAllah. Okay, we're starting in 2 minutes, inshallah ta'ala. And today we're focusing on how to build a social project. We're really excited to have LaunchGood with us. I mean, they have been the pioneers of bringing the Muslim world together in developing and funding amazing projects. Inshallah, you learn a lot of practical tips. I mean, these webinars are all about giving us the practical tips so we can prepare our best Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. So really looking forward to starting very, very soon. MashaAllah, Khair from Somaliland, from Zainab from Canada, Fariha from Dubai, Sabine from Pakistan, MashaAllah, excellent. Excellent. Starting in 1 minute. 1 minute, inshallah.
And how can people vote, Muhammad, on the questions? They just...
So if you go to the questions underneath this video, you can see a lot of questions. If you really like a question, you want us to make sure we answer it, just make sure you vote up. There's a little arrow above the above this is votes. Just click on that arrow, and that means that it will be voted up, inshallah ta'ala.
Awesome.
Can you guys hear me? Someone's complaining about the voice. Can you guys hear me clearly, inshallah ta'ala? Hear myself and Amani, can you hear us very clearly? Okay, you can hear us. So I guess make sure that maybe perhaps your interconnection, there's an issue, or try with your headphones. It'll make a difference, inshallah. Awesome. That is very clear. Okay, so with that, we're gonna you can see our screens. I'm gonna share today's screen so that we can have an awesome webinar. Bismillah. All right, can you guys see the screen?
Bismillah, let's do it.
Can you see the screen? I'll make it easy for you. So I'm gonna hide Aman. You're gonna hide myself. Whoops, I'm gonna hide myself first. There we go. All right, can you see the screen? Full screen, nice and clear. All right, Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Welcome to this very, very special webinar from Productive Muslim Academy and from launchgood.com on how to do more good this Ramadan. You know, a lot of us, we really go to Ramadan with this mode of, I'm going to finish the Quran twice. I'm going to go for every Taraweeh. I'm going to go for I'tikaf and Tahajjud last 10 nights and really think about me, myself, and I. Like, how can I improve myself? How can I focus on myself? Which is great, which is very, very important. But somewhere along the lines, we kind of forget that Ramadan is also a very social month. The idea of doing more good in Ramadan for others as well, not just for ourselves. So we want to put together, LaunchGood, myself and Product Muslim, wanted to put together a practical webinar where we can sort of think about how can we all be more socially productive? How can we do more good this Ramadan beyond ourselves, beyond just helping ourselves improve our spirituality, but going beyond ourselves and helping others, whether it's our family or our neighborhood or community or ummah or humanity at large. That's the idea of this webinar. We want to make it very, very practical. So if you by any chance have any questions or you're not sure about the practicalities of all this, please do ask your questions. We're really looking forward to make sure this is as practical as possible, inshallah ta'ala. So with that, let's sort of get started with how we define productivity at productivemuslim.com. If you think about, normally when people think of productivity, they always think about productivity from the point of view of getting things done or get more work done. But from a Muslim perspective and from Productive Muslim perspective, our definition of productivity is 3 parts: that you need energy, and you need focus, and you need time. And these 3 should be geared towards maximizing your reward in akhirah. What do I mean by this? So for example, imagine if you did not sleep properly or did not eat properly, or you're very, very tired, so your energy levels are very low. It does not matter how much focus you have, it does not matter how much time you have, you cannot be productive. Also, imagine that you have lots of energy, you're buzzing, and you just don't, and lots of energy, and you have lots of time, but you're so distracted. Twitter, Facebook, you have YouTube, and you're so distracted, you also cannot be productive. Also, you can have lots of energy, you can have lots of focus, but let's say you're super busy, you just have no time to do anything meaningful in your life, then you cannot be productive. So productivity has to be made of these 3 parts. You need to direct your energy, how energetic you feel, your focus, where your mind focuses, and how you allocate tasks according to your time in order to maximize. This is the important part, because someone playing video games has energy, has focus, and boy, they do have time, but that's not towards a beneficial goal. So from a Muslim perspective, our goal is to maximize our reward in akhirah. Is this clear, guys? Are you guys this clear? So productivity is about energy, how you direct your energy, how you direct your focus, how you direct your time towards basically pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and maximizing reward in akhirah. Great. Is clear? All right, awesome. So one of the things that comes, in other words, putting the definition of productivity is about making smart choices. You ask yourself every day when you wake up in the morning, how will I sort of direct my energy? Where will I direct my focus? And how will I prioritize my tasks in the time that I've been given in order to maximize my potential in every single role that I play? You see, a lot of time people think that as long as I'm productive at work, as long as I'm productive in school, as long as I'm productive in some kind of career, then everything else doesn't matter. But from a Muslim perspective, we are asked to be productive in all of our roles. We are asked to be productive as husbands, as fathers, as sons, as wives, as daughters, as neighbors, as community members. And the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam shows that. It shows that in his example, how he lived his life, that he made the smart choices with his energy, with his focus, and his time, so that he gave every single role he had. He was the prophet, he was the imam, he was the father, he was the grandfather, he was the husband, and he gave every single person. There was not a single person who complained that he had not given his right or his due right. So this is the model we want to follow. We want to maximize our productivity, not just in work, not just in school, but in terms of all of our roles, across our roles. And one of our roles is that we are citizens, we are community members, we are people who have a responsibility towards the society around us, and that's what we want to focus on today, inshallah. So there are 3 spheres of productivity, 3 areas that you can be productive through. One sphere, of course, is the spiritual sphere. And this idea is that your spirituality, how close you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will help to boost your productivity. And a quick example like this, for example, when you make dua, that action of making dua, that sets a chain reaction, because that makes you intentional in what you're seeking. And number 2, you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his divine assistance to help you in achieving what you want to achieve in this life or the next. So that by itself, by making dua, that actually boosts your productivity. And there are many, many aspects of spiritual productivity. We have lots of articles on productivemuslim.com that covers in more detail, but that's just one example. Another example, this is the area we're going to focus on, is social productivity. How just being socially productive, just being productive within your community, or even within your family, can help you become much, much more productive in terms of achieving so much in so little time. Again, we want to step away from the selfish mindset of me, myself, and I. As long as I'm doing well, I don't care about others. social productivity is very, very important. It's actually very beneficial. I'll give you a practical example. There were two colleagues, both entered university around the same time. And one of them was heavily involved in MSAs, in ISOCs, in doing lots of extracurricular activities outside the university academics. And the other said, no, I'm going to focus only on my studies and nothing more. At the end of their 4 years of the university, both of them finished the exact same grade, which is a reasonable grade. It wasn't perfect, but it was a reasonable grade. Both of them finished exact same grade. But guess who had the more experience? Guess who had the more colorful CV of being involved in event management, involved in da'wah activities, involved in so many things that the other person who just focused on their studies did not get that sort of experience. So the first person's social productivity is what added to the experience. And in today's world, your academics alone will not make a difference. You need, especially if you want to land a great job or even start your own career, more than academics, you need to have that experience, that life experience, and these social projects can be very, very beneficial for you, for yourself in this life and the next, inshallah ta'ala. And the last sphere is physical productivity, and this idea is that you need to manage your physical ability, and how can you manage your body so that you can maximize its peak, you can get to that peak performance. You see, our bodies like machines. If we treat them well, if we take care of our bodies in a very efficient way, then they will be able to help us deliver us the best performance. Let me give a personal example. I came back from traveling a couple of days ago, and I would just, because I didn't sleep properly, because I didn't eat properly when I was traveling, literally for 2 days, I just could not do anything. I was just completely almost crashed. Like I was really, really tired. And that becomes because I did not take care of myself. Now, physical productivity is crucial for you to help you become productive overall. So these are the 3 spheres of productivity that we focus on. But like I said, today, our focus is on social productivity. So the way this framework is put together is that every day we make smart choices with our energy, with our focus and time, in order to live a spiritually, socially, physically productive lifestyle so that we can achieve our ultimate goal of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the framework that I want you to keep back in your mind, and this is the framework that we use at Productive Muslim and Productive Muslim Academy to teach productivity to the Ummah, inshallah ta'ala. And the foundation of this framework is that we need to have sincere intentions and work hard. We need to make sure that we're doing this not for ourselves, not for fame, not for money, not for just self-aggrandization, or just make sure that, hey, we're the best in the world. Is to say we're doing this sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is this clear, guys? Are we going good? Is this so far so good, so clear? Awesome. Okay. All right, so now we're going to get a little bit more practical. So that was the kind of the theory part. We can get a little bit more practical, inshallah ta'ala. So we're going to dive into social productivity. Now, what I mean by social productivity, the definition we use, that social productivity is all about going beyond yourself and being productive, helping others and benefiting others. It does not have to be just money. Unfortunately, sometimes we think social productivity, we think about giving charity. What I mean by this is not just about money. It could be your time. It could be your knowledge. It could be your skills. And it could be physical strength, just helping, carrying stuff. That itself is part of being socially productive. So it does not have to be only money. There's lots of ways for you to be socially productive. And today we're going to explore how, and Sister Mani will give us more detail on how you can use a LaunchGood platform to launch your social productive project. The underlying essence of social productivity is service, that you are serving others, that you are in the khidmah, in the service of others. And that is, in one of the hadiths that really inspire me for social productivity is when Prophet Muhammad says that Allah loves, the most beloved people to Allah are those who are most beneficial to other people, that anfa'ahum linnas, that they're so beneficial to others, like everyone goes to them to get things done, with them. That is the essence of service in Islam. Now, why should you care? A lot of times, again, you might think, well, alhamdulillah, I'm good, my family is good. Why should I care? Why should I go out of my way and get into like projects and help others and then get into team politics and then have to raise funds, and then some people don't come on time, and all that headache of doing social productive activities? Why should I care? Well, because Islam itself is a very community-based religion. When Prophet Muhammad entered Medina, the first thing he said, imagine before he even the first announcement, he said, the first hadith, one of the first hadiths he mentioned, he said, "Ya ayyuhan nas, أفشوا السلام وأطعموا الطعام وصلوا بالليل والناس نيام تدخلون الجنة بسلام. That, oh people, spread the salam, and and feed the people, feed the hungry, and pray at night when people are sleeping. So notice the first two, spread the salam and feed the people. These are socially productive activities. These are not individual activities. The last one, which is pray at night when people are sleeping, that's the spiritual, that's the sort of individual spiritual activity. So if you think about Islam itself, it's a very community-based religion. Think about the five pillars of Islam. The Shahada, you're supposed to say it in front of people. At least 2 witnesses should witness your Shahada. Salat is recommended to pray in Jama'ah. Fasting, you fast with the community and you break a fast with the community. Hajj, of course, is nothing more socially productive than that, because you're about 2-3 million people around the world coming together with the rights together. And zakah, of course, is the rich giving to the poor. So Islam is a very community-based way. It's not an individualistic or just sit in a corner and meditate on your own. It's very much about the community. It's very about helping those around you. Now, one of the proverbs, this Arabic proverb that I really love, is called حَيْثُمَا زَرَعَكَ اللَّهُ فَأَثْمِرْ, that wherever Allah plants you, be fruitful. And this is a beautiful example, because sometimes we are planted, depends where you are. You could be in college, you could be in school, you could be at work, you could be on a plane, you could be on a train, you could be anywhere. Try to be fruitful. This proverb should be like the guiding sort of mantra for you. You always think, how can I be fruitful where I am? And the person and wherever Allah plants you, so it almost as if Allah is planting you somewhere to see how you react. Now, it's sometimes so easy for us to kind of hide in a corner, especially those, maybe you live in a sort of non-majority Muslim country. You might feel like uncomfortable being Muslim and so on and so forth. But if each one of us practice this, that we should be fruitful wherever we are, it by itself gives Islam a beautiful name. And that itself gives us da'wah by action, not just da'wah by words. So be fruitful. Be one of those who, when you're not there, let's say you leave your job or you leave your college, people always remember you and miss you and go, man, that, mashallah, Fatima or Khadija or Muhammad or Abdullah or Abdurrahman, when they were there here, it was amazing. And they're going to miss you, even make dua for you. Don't be of those who basically when they leave, they say, alhamdulillah, this person left. He was a nightmare to deal with in the first place, and we don't want to deal with them at all. So think about how can you be fruitful wherever you are. And this applies to every single person, every single one of us. You're never too young, you're never too old to be fruitful and beneficial to others. So always think about how can you be fruitful, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so now the question we got coming back is the more practical question. Well, where do you start? Okay, let's say right now you're all inspired. You think, okay, great. I'm really ready to start my social productive activity, and I'm very excited. But where do I start? How can I start? There's so many problems in the ummah. There's so many issues in the ummah. How can I start? Well, here's some practical advice that can help you. Number one, think about two circles. There's something called circle of influence. This I got from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Which a circle of influence are things that you have influence over, right? For example, it could be your influence over your children, or influence over your neighborhood, or influence over a community. It depends. Each one of us have different influences depending on our position, depending on seniority. Each of us have some kind of influence and some kind of circle of influence that we can sort of make some change. We can inspire change. Then there's a circle of concern. The circle of concern are things that are major issues. I mean, can some of you give me an example of a circle of concern? I just want to think, what is things that you're concerned about, but you really can't do much about. I mean, it's such a huge problem. For example, war zones, right? For example, that's a big one. Poverty. There's 1.5 billion people around the world who live under the line of poverty, for example. Right? Famine, huge famines, things that are overwhelming. This circle of concern. Now, a lot of us, climate change is a great one, climate change. So now again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you should not do anything about them. I'm saying is that you should start with your circle of influence. Start where you can make a difference. Start with saying, I'm going to support this small group of project or this thing that I have influence, that I can change. And as time grows, it might even encompass circle of concern. There is a great example that I normally share of a person who basically started off very, very small, where he was just he heard that there are Muslims living in a certain country, a certain non-Muslim country, which did not have adequate facilities for medication, for medical health. So again, as a circle of, for him and his parents were basically doctors. So in terms of this circle of influence, they say, on our own scale, what can we do? So, well, we can travel once a month to this country and sort of treat as many people as we can. That's all they did, nothing complicated. Now, as they supported the circle of influence, a lot of people started joining them and helping them to basically support this community until it became like a charity organization that has a number of hospitals in this country dedicated to helping the Muslim community in that area. So what started off as a circle of influence, something that only me and you bothering about, something that very, very small, it grew over time to encompass the circle of concern. And there are many examples. Think of many, many projects we admire today. Think about projects like, for example, Bayna program by Nu'man Ali Khan. Here his story where he started with teaching Arabic in community college, and slowly it grew to become this, encompass a circle of concern of teaching Arabic to the whole ummah. Think about any project. Most of it started as things that they could do within their own circle of influence, but over time it grew to encompass circle of concern. The mistake people do is that a lot of times we focus on the circle of concern. We say, well, these countries are, there's so many war, poverty, there's nothing can be done. How can I feed the world? How can I remove poverty in the world? How can I, make a huge difference to this big, overwhelming problems that there's no way, I'm too young, I don't have enough money. My message to you, start with the circle of influence. Start where you can make a difference. And then slowly, it will grow. And inshallah ta'ala, with Allah's permission, tawfiq, it might grow to encompass the circle of concern. Is this clear, guys? Is this concept clear, guys? Make sure that you guys get this, inshallah. All right, awesome. So again, another way to think about this is, well, where are these circles that I can get involved in? For some people, it's just family, right? Just being aware of the issues within the family. Maybe a lot of people in your family cannot read Quran, for example, and you take it as a social productive project to help them learn and understand Quran. Maybe there's an orphan in your family, and you take it as a social productive project to take care of this orphan in your family. Maybe among your relatives, maybe there is a serious there's a serious example, let's say the serious misunderstanding between your relatives, and you take it upon yourself to try to fix between the two families. Maybe you take it as a way to maybe your family lives so far away from each other that you create a WhatsApp group to keep everyone sort of aware of each other's situation and just help each other and support each other. It could be as small as that. It could be as big as supporting maybe the neighbors. Maybe there's an issue in your neighborhood. Last week we got an example. One of the neighbors was concerned that a power station was going to be built close to where we live. And the lady rallied all the neighbors to us to go out and say, no, we don't want this power station where we're living, for example. So that person took the initiative to do something socially productive. They're not getting paid; it's volunteer based. But took initiative, something they cared about, and involved all the neighbors. Think about your colleagues. Think about the community, whether it's a Muslim community or just the community you live in, doesn't Muslim or non-Muslim. Think about doing something for the ummah, for humanity. It doesn't matter where you start. You don't have to go in synchrony, in sort of chronological order. I'm not saying you should start with family, then relatives. You can sort of go between different platforms, but most people, it's up to you, but most people, it's the best is to start within your family. That's why Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Khayrukum khayrukum li ahlihi, wa ana khayrukum li ahli." That the best amongst you is the one who is best to his family. So start with family. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us a lot of times in the Quran, وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَى حَقَّهُ, that give the right to the close one, to relatives. And there's many hadith that those who are nearer and closer have more right upon us to support and to help. Again, a lot of times people who involve social productive projects, we get so sort of dragged into major issues that we forget the sort of small, close at home issues at basically at home, inshallah. So that's where we start. That's where we think. Now I think, well, what does this mean? What can I do? What can I do that's really good? For example, one thing I say to you also, think of something that you're passionate about, right? It could be anything. It does not have to be spiritual. A lot of times, I think you have to be da'wah related. You have to teach Quran. You have to do da'wah. It could be anything that's good. I mean, Islam is very, very. The beauty of Islam is that as long as anything that's really good, that's beneficial to mankind, and does not negate the Quran and Sunnah, then you can more. Then Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, you get rewarded for that. I mean, we had. I once, I was doing this workshop in Malaysia, for example, and we asked for examples of social productive activities. And there was a lady, for example, who said, you know what, I really care about the coral reef in Malaysia, and my social productive activity project would be to clean up the coral reef in this part of Malaysia. I mean, that was something that she was passionate about. That was something she was really interested in, and that's where it's thought. It does not have to be only spiritual and religious stuff. It could be anything that is good, that has birr, that is khair, that does not negate the Quran and Sunnah. So find your social passion. Find your social, it's something that you really care about, something that you really, it hurts you when things are not moving. Because it could be as simple as it really annoys you that people don't throw the trash in the bin, right? And you make it your social productive project, make sure that everyone throws the trash or everyone recycles, for example, their waste and does not, put the wrong trash in the wrong can, for example. Whatever you care about, that is your starting point. Define who you'll serve, say exactly who you will serve. Like I said, start with circle of influence. Don't think I'm going to do this for this global network of humanity. I'm going to focus on my area, my community, and slowly, inshallah ta'ala, with Allah's permission, tawfiq, it will grow to encompass the circle of concern. Learn about your passion. Learn the skills. If you want to become, let's say, this lady who wants to become a diver and clean up, learn about what's the safest way, most effective way to clean the coral reef. What's the best way to encourage people to recycle more. Learn. There's a lot of great books, great articles, great science now in psychology and behavior economics on how you can do something that's beneficial. What's the best way to raise an orphan? What's the best way to give charity? Is it better to give money, or is it better to give, for example, investment for a poor person to develop their own business? There's so much out there. So learn about your social passion. Learn about how you'll serve others. What's already there? What are the major challenges and how can you add value? And then find local online groups that support your social passion and join them, and basically join them or at least learn from them. Because sometimes we think we're the first people to come up with a new project. There's thousands of examples. Like you think you're the first person to come with an Arabic learning Quran, or, example, helping refugees with some kind of support. There are thousands of examples. This way, something like launchgood.com is a great platform for you to see what's already out there. What are the Muslims already doing and what's not being done? Because sometimes you think, hey, no one's been done this before, then that's a great project for you to start, because maybe that's something that no one else has forgotten about. So think about finding local online groups, joining them or learning from their experience, inshallah ta'ala. And then once you find your project, just get started and don't wait, inshallah ta'ala. And is this clear, guys? Alrighty, so the website is called launchgood.com, which Amani will talk about in a minute, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so some practical tips. I'm gonna went a bit over time, but some practical tips I want you to, before I pass the mic to Amani, who will talk more about how to basically raise funds for your project. If you're really, really serious, how to raise funds for your project, for Launch, inshallah ta'ala. The first thing is take baby steps. We try to think of big projects and think, oh, how will I ever get there? Baby steps, one step at a time. Don't get too caught up with how this is so complicated. No one's going to listen to this. How will I ever teach Arabic to the whole ummah? How will I ever, for example, like Productive Muslim, when started, in the back of my mind, always that I want Productive Muslim to become a global platform. But when I started 9 years ago, it was a rinky-dinky small blog. Like no one really cared. It's like no one ever read that blog. But it's just that baby steps, small steps, no small steps in the long run. The second thing is don't get too caught up with your idea. Sometimes if your idea is bad or if your idea is just not working, throw it away and start a new one. Sometimes it's best if you fail fast. If you invest so much in your project and then you realize later that it really does not work, then that becomes a waste of time. So, you kind of move out of your ego, hey, this didn't work, let me move on. And that's so fail fast, throw it away and start a new project if that didn't work out. Number 3, sometimes for projects, you might need to incubate it a bit. So don't share your project. I'm going to do this, right? And then everyone makes fun of you, say, hey, whatever. Start small, maybe even quietly. Some of the questions people also, well, what if I want to do something, my parents don't agree with it? Well, sometimes you just start small. If something's good and khair, normally parents support it. But let's say your parents just don't want you to be too distracted. You can start something very small on a very small scale. and watch it grow and just take care of it. Once it's very strong, once you can say, okay, you know what, it's really stands on two feet, then perhaps you can share with the world. So look, this is what I've done over the last 2 years or 6 months. And that way it becomes easier to share with people. People might admire it and respect you and encourage it. But if you just start a project and then you sort of say, I'm going to do this, people might crush it before even it's ready to grow, basically. Watch a lot of, read books, watch TED Talks, get into conversations about your project, really, really research it. Don't assume that you know everything. We don't, none of us have everything. Learn from the best experience, learn from the experts, learn from people who were there before you, mentors, coaches, and just learn the practical tips, because that makes a huge difference. And most important, another thing is, write things down. How many times you might have it right now, maybe there's some idea came to you, oh, I'll do that. Before you forget it, write it down. Taking constant journaling, taking constant notes makes a huge difference. Shout out. Now, the other question people get was, well, I don't have enough time. I'm really, really it's Ramadan, I'll be fasting, I have work, I have school, I don't have time. Well, here are 5 practical tips. Number 1, have sincere intentions and work hard. Sometimes we think that, the power of intentions is a huge, huge motivator for people. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees that good intention and, it gives that barakah to your work, you'd be amazed that even with a little effort, little time you had, the results you achieve. So have sincere intentions. It makes a huge difference. Number 2, make sure you schedule in time. Block time out, even if it's a 1 hour a day, 2 hour a day, to work on your social project. And especially Ramadan is coming up, know exactly when will you work on the social project. And Emmanuel right now will talk about a case study very soon when I pass the mic to her, on somebody who was very busy that launched an amazing project on having Eid clothes for people who are poor, for example. So that's, but that came by them putting a schedule and just, planning it properly. Number 3, make sure every day, at least, or every week, knock out some very important tasks related to your project. So always think, what's my most important task, my MITs, and knock them out every day, every week. If every single day you knock out just at least 3 MITs, or even every week you knock out 3 MITs, by the end of the year, by the end of the month, by the end of 6 months, it's amazing how much you'll achieve. And have a team, right? Have people support you. It's so hard to do this yourself. I've been blessed with an amazing Productive Muslim team that basically really helped me get where I am today and get Productive Muslim where it is today by their support, by just doing amazing work. So have a team. No one can reach the top on their own. They always need a team, and be humble enough to have a team that supports you and that helps you get things done. And finally, when you get involved in a social productive project, make sure you take good care of yourself. Like I said, physical productivity. Sometimes you think you can do X, Y, and Z, but if your body is tired, if your body is just crashing, you might not be able to give it enough time or focus, and you just think, oh, forget it, I'm too tired to do this. So make sure you do take care of your body so that you get things done properly, inshallah ta'ala. Now I'm going to pass the mic to Amani from Launch Good, and inshallah ta'ala, she is going to talk about, Amani, it's your call.
All right, awesome. There is a weird echo. I don't know. Okay, perfect. All right, can everybody hear me now? Yes, perfect. So Mohammed, I'm going to share my screen, which means I might miss people's questions. Maybe you could let me know if there's something that folks want me to talk about, or some of the feedback on the side. Cool. So can everybody see my screen? All right. Cool. All right. Bismillah. So, Jazakallah khair, Muhammad, you covered so much. So what I'm going to talk a little bit more about is, a lot of us have great ideas, whether it's a phone, it's a phone app, a book, or a cause we care about. But a lot of times we need the funds to make it happen or to kick it off. So what I'll talk about is, one way to do that is through crowdfunding. And talk about more about why crowdfunding is beyond just story. It's beyond just raising funds. It's really storytelling and building community. So a couple of things. I'll talk about how it started. I'll share my own story of my social project and how it led to something like Launch Good. I'll give you an overview of crowdfunding. When is it a good idea to launch a campaign? When is it not? What are the different case studies? Why you should crowdfund? What's the benefit to you and to your community, some best practices. And then I'll also talk about, I don't have time to crowdfund, what can I do? And we'll mention the giving challenge in a bit. And last but not least, we'll share some questions. All right, so when I talk about crowdfunding, it's really about storytelling. And so it's proper to kind of start with my story first and foremost. Before LaunchGood came about, I was a youth organizer, and I actually have a background in social work. And the first time I crowdfunded, I was 17 years old. So I didn't have access to big donors. I didn't have access to, what we call the government grant system in the US. But I knew that I had a cause that I cared about, and I wanted to make it happen. And at the time, we had built a social incubator for Muslim youth, inner city Muslim youth, where we helped them develop and launch their own community initiatives. And when I crowdfunded that was my first time. We raised about $10,000. Along this time, I met my co-founder, Chris Blum, who had crowdfunded a film on Kickstarter, another popular platform in the US. And there was very few Muslims in that space. What we realized then was the transformative power of crowdfunding, and we asked ourselves, how can we take this back to the Muslim community? We saw this amazing ability of crowdfunding to be able to set the tone. So if you think of something like smartwatches, were started by a Pebble Watch on Kickstarter. The fact that 10 to 25% of the films that go to Sundance Film Festival, a popular film festival in the US, have been crowdfunded. And so from there, we said there's 1.6 billion Muslims. There's over 400 niche, or as you say, niche crowdfunding platforms. How can we make something for the global Muslim community? And then, alhamdulillah, we started LaunchGood with that in mind, along with Umar Hamid, our third co-founder, based out of Atlanta. So, long story short, 2.5 years later, we've raised a little bit over 8 million for 700 projects in 50 countries. So the idea here is that LaunchGood is a global crowdfunding platform to help Muslims like you all across the world by raising funds for their campaigns and projects. Now, I won't talk too much about crowdfunding in the market, but I'm going to jump straight into what is crowdfunding. What is this all about? The first thing you want to think about is crowdfunding is really not so new. You go to the masjid, somebody walks around with a box and starts collecting donations, and everybody puts in a little bit of money. That's crowdfunding. But with technology, we're able to take that same mechanism of the crowd and the same generosity and take it online and make it so much fun and so much more exciting. So the idea here is that you get a large amount of people to give small amounts to make a campaign happen. And this can be for anything. But the whole concept here is that it's a small donation. So in crowdfunding, it's actually very normal for all of your support to be $10, $5, $25 donations. Now, there's different types of crowdfunding. I won't jump into all of them, but I'll let you know that we focus mostly on donation and pre-sale. So this could be something like a cause or a nonprofit, or pre-sale, you're launching a new product, or you have a book you're trying to publish, and so you're trying to get pre-sales for that book. But I want to specifically focus on why you should crowdfund. So 4 main reasons here. A lot of times people want to launch a very specific initiative, and I'll share some case studies. One being Shafat Sayed, who wanted to send Eid clothes to kids in Pakistan. 2, it's more about building community and participation. So you could do this campaign all on your own, or you can allow so much people to be part of that barakah. And the idea here, again, is that, if I just send you a PayPal link and say, hey, I have this initiative going on, I don't know who else participated within your campaign. But with a crowdfunding campaign, you're able to see how many supporters are on board. You're able to see where, how many donations you've raised so far. The kind of support is generating, very similar to the crowd, this webinar, you're able to see, okay, people all across the world. And then 3, reducing the risk and validating the idea. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to understand, okay, do people want a product I'm going to give? Do people want this new innovative children's book to teach, Muslims or Muslim children how to make wudu? Instead of going to what traditionally was, venture capitalists or going to angel investors, you're going directly to the market and you're putting your product and your idea out there and you're saying, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. If you want to support it, and if we hit our goal, we can actually make it happen. So it's a very easy way to test the demand of an idea and get some initial seed funding to get it started. And last but not least, it's accessible and transparent. So going back to number two, you know how many people are on board, you know where the funds are going, and now, you're held accountable to 300, 200 people, whoever's supporting you become the sort of your initial supporters, and they're the ones who you have to account for. So for people who are looking to support campaigns online, they're able to, feel at ease that, okay, if 400 people have supported a campaign, that means there must be something legitimate about it. So a couple examples here. There's two types of crowdfunding. There's partial and there's all or nothing. Partial funding is where every little bit helps. So for example, if I'm trying to support, folks in Gaza, and we're trying to install LED lights into 50 homes, the more financial support I get, the more lights I can install. There isn't a set amount. It's really about every little bit helps. For example, if we're trying to send feminine hygiene kits to Syrian refugees in Greece, every kit helps another woman. And so the idea here is that you still have a goal and you still create a set amount, let's say 2,500 or 2,000 pounds. But if your campaign doesn't hit its goal, it's okay. It's not a problem. Whereas you have here, all or nothing is specifically tied to initiatives that only if you have all the funds you need, can you really make the campaign happen. So for example, we have this campaign with Sister Megan Wyatt. I'm going to actually do a quick, I'm going to actually show you how that works. So with Sister Megan Wyatt, she actually she had a story of her daughter was talking about wanting to wear hijab, and she felt that there was no book that taught Muslim girls how to wear hijab. And so together they created a campaign where essentially she needed about $10,000 to $20,000 worth of pre-orders before she can make this book happen, especially in the publishing industry. And so she launched a campaign, and alhamdulillah raised about $20,000. Once she hit her goal, everybody's cards were charged. So with all or nothing campaigns, what ends up happening is everybody supports, but no one's card is charged, no one's credit card is charged till you hit the campaign goal. In this case, the campaign goal was $20,000, and as soon as they hit their goal, everybody's cards were charged. And that told Sister Megan Wyatt that people wanted this product, they wanted it, there was a demand for it. And that was one way that she was able to make that happen. Now, if she didn't hit her goal, if she raised only $10,000 but needed $20,000, then Sister Megan Wyatt wouldn't get any funds, and no one's cards are charged. So it's a safe way to see, okay, I have a social project in mind, but before I put a lot of time and energy and resources into it to make it happen, I want to make sure that people really want this. And so for campaigns, all or nothing works really well. Another example is the Ramadan Legacy app. Some of you guys might have already used it or checked it out. It's a really great way to basically plan your Ramadan legacy. What is the kind of experience that you want to have this Ramadan? And so with an app, they had to make sure that they had at least 5,000 pounds in support before they can even develop the first prototype. And so they had a all or nothing campaign. Now, some key points to think about. When we think about crowdfunding, you always have to remember that the crowd comes before the funds. And this is really key because a lot of times people wonder, I don't have a Facebook group. I'm not productive Muslim. I'm not launch good. How could I create an initiative and get people to support it or get people to be on board? But really, what you want to think about is, for many of us, if you go back to those spheres of influence that Brother Muhammad talked about, your friends and family are your inherent crowd. They're going to be your first supporters, and they're going to be one of the first people to give to your own campaign. So when you think about your crowd, think about, do I have friends and family around me who I can reach out to support this initiative? Do I have people in my masjid? Do I have, am I part of a book club or certain groups online that I know I can reach out to? That is your crowd right there. The second thing you want to think about is publicity. Crowdfunding is really more about publicity than it is about fundraising. And the key point here to think about is, even if you don't reach all the funds you need to make your social project happen, the biggest takeaway is that people now know that you're a resource. People now know that there's this initiative that's happened. One good example of this is people in the US never thought that they could crowdfund their Islamic education. But we helped one student crowdfund her education to Bayina. And so basically the idea here was that if you would give to her campaign, she would create your favorite verse in calligraphy. And that now that's the norm. Now we have people crowdfund all the time to go to Qalam, to go to Zaytuna, to go to Bayina. But what that first person did, their campaign, is they really set an example. And that became a case study for so many other people. So think about the type of publicity that will be generated just by creating a campaign. And that support comes in more than one way. So when you create your campaign, not everybody will give. People say, hey, I love what you're doing. I want to be part of this. How can I join your team? So we talked about the different types of crowdfunding. We talked about partial. We talked about all or nothing. But when is it a good idea to actually create a crowdfunding campaign, right? And how much should I raise is a question we get all the time. So we created this chart to help walk you through it. One of the first things to think about is it's not a good idea to raise funds just for operating funds. So what I mean by that is, we need $40,000 to keep our doors open. Help us raise those funds. People generally aren't excited about funding someone's salary or operational funds. Now, there's ways you can you can sort of reframe it. We want to open up, or we want to keep our programming available, or we have new programming that we're looking to do. But generally, people aren't excited about that. What people get excited about is a specific campaign or a specific project. So, for example, they want to know tangibly what their support is going to. In this case, this is a guide for Muslim girls ages 8 to 11. This is a legacy app that's going to help you create an amazing Ramadan experience. This campaign is about helping Moroccan women escape poverty by learning a trade. All of these are way more specific than saying help MN Center, for example, or support. For example, our nonprofit. It's too vague, and people want a very specific way that they could be on board. Now, the second thing to think about, which I briefly talked about, is money versus just publicity and money. Now, if you're just looking to raise funds, that's all right, but actually you have to remember that it's more about publicity than it is just about money. And I alluded to that earlier when I talked about your campaign actually being a case study for so many other people. And one of the things that we often do is people come to us and say, I'm raising funds for XYZ. And we tell them, hey, great. Actually, so-and-so raised funds for the same thing. You should talk, and we connect them. And the idea here is that they help them sort of navigate what it's like to create that campaign, but also the logistics. How did they make their initiative happen? What was some of the stuff they had to do? What are the things they had to look out for? So think of it as not just money, but publicity and partnerships. Now, the third piece is the financial goal. And this is perhaps one of the most important elements of it, because a lot of times people say, okay, if I'm going to put a campaign out there, let me just ask for, let me just make it an incredibly high goal. Now, believe it or not, the average crowdfunding campaign in the industry is about $4,000. On our site, it tends to be about $10,000, and that's because the Muslim community, alhamdulillah or mashallah, is just generally more exceptional in all cases. And so the average crowdfunding campaign is about 1 to 20K. And the reason for that is it's actually not effective for you to try to raise hundreds and thousands of dollars online. You're better off having a fundraising dinner, bringing in certain people into the room to give set amounts. Instead, crowdfunding is about small donations from a lot of people. And that's why it makes it accessible. So if I at 17 could raise $10,000 from friends and family, and whether I'm a student or a doctor, an engineer, I know that I'm able to contribute $5, $10. It doesn't matter. And that's the idea here, is that it's all these small donations that actually add up to have a large impact. So you want to aim for 1 to 20K, and you want to think about your social project within those guidelines. Always ask yourself, what is the minimum you need to make this initiative happen, and then raise 10% more than that just to be safe. Now, in terms of your social network, I talked about your crowd. You don't necessarily have to have 1,000 followers on Twitter and 1,000 likes on Facebook, but it does help that you have team members on board, because now you have everyone's collective network. So if it's myself and Brother Muhammad and another person, all of us have friends and family that we can reach out to. And now you've got your collective network all pooling in to support this campaign. So, if you're trying to raise about 4,000, 2 to 4,000, you could possibly do it solo, but generally we advise people to add another team member on board and pool in all of your network together to make this campaign happen. So to give you an example, let's see actually if I could show you a specific campaign here. Just a second. All right. How's everybody doing here? Can everybody hear me well? Yes? All right. Perfect. I'm just catching up on the comments. Awesome. I was just telling Brother Muhammad, it's so weird speaking to yourself for a bit. So it's great to see your comments on the side. So I'm going to give you a case study here to hopefully help some of this kind of settle in. Now, when you have a crowdfunding campaign, this is one example. It looks like something like this. You have the title here, Eid clothes for 1,500 children in Pakistan. And you've got your tagline right here. And then you have the goal amount. This is a green bar that tells you how much has been raised. And typically here, where it says project closed, typically here you have how many days are left. So 20 days, 30 days. On average, we tell campaign creators to raise funds for about 30 days. And that's very, very intentional. The reason for that is you have to have a set deadline for raising funds. And there's two reasons. The first reason is that you have to be able to push this campaign for all 30 days. And more than that, you get exhausted. Ironically, Ramadan is exactly 30 days, which is incredible. And then two, unfortunately, we all know in human nature is that people procrastinate. So a lot of times when you reach out for support or you reach out to have people to participate in something, they want to do it, but they procrastinate. And giving people a set deadline really helps people know that you have to get the funds by this time. And in fact, you'll notice that 80% of your support will come in the first and last week of your campaign. And that's again because people procrastinate. They say they're going to support, but they forget. And so the idea here is 30 days is just enough time for that. You don't want to be fundraising the whole time. You actually need to make this initiative happen. And fundraising is just one part of that puzzle to make the larger goal or the larger project happen. So what I want to do is I want to walk you through what does a good campaign look like, and then we'll talk about strategy. So, when you go online, to be honest, most people don't read most of what you read. And I often have to tell campaign creators this all the time, especially with the online medium. When people come to your campaign, they're probably just going to look at your title, your tagline, and possibly your first paragraph, right? So if you think of this like real estate, this spot right here, the title, the tagline is what shows up when you share it on Facebook and Twitter. And that first paragraph have to be really key at explaining what it is exactly you're doing and what's the impact you're trying to have. So, for example, in the tagline, if you had to tweet what it is you're doing, what would that be? So think of your tagline like that. If I had to explain in one sentence what is it that I'm doing, this would be your tagline. Another example is this How to Get Hijab Ready campaign that I talked about earlier. She breaks it down, a guide for Muslim girls age 8 to 11. Right? Very simple, very straightforward. And then her first paragraph talks about why isn't there a fun and colorful book to show me ideas on how to get ready to wear hijab and how to wear it. That explains exactly what she's doing and what this whole campaign's about. And anybody who's interested can read more. So think of this first paragraph as your elevator pitch. If I found you on an elevator and I asked you in 30 seconds, what is your social project and why is it important for me to support, this first paragraph would basically break that down. Now, along the lines of people not reading much, afterwards, you can insert pictures in your campaign. If you have a product, it's helpful to have a video that explains what it is and what it's about. But for most people, a picture is just as good. And so since people don't read, the next big thing that you have to think about is headers. How do you tell your story through headers without me having to read this? So if I just read Shefet's headers, okay, make a child smile at Eid, only $10 for new Eid clothes, make a difference to needy children, about hope, the organization they've paired up with, that gives me enough confidence as someone looking to support this campaign. I don't have to read all of this. Same thing here, How to Get Hijab Ready. Just from reading her headers, I'm able to tell what this story is about. Muslim girls need positive images to model in literature. Wearing hijab isn't an easy decision for many girls today. All of this helps me see what it is that she's doing without having to read all the details. So think about that, is that people don't read online like they used to. So when you talk about your social project, it's got to be in really simple terms. It's got to be broken down in a aesthetically pleasing way. Now, the second thing that campaigns have is what we call giving levels. These are different levels that people tend to support at. And I always tell people to have, a wide range of giving levels because it's about accessibility. So in this case, at $15, you can actually get the copy of the book. At $22, you can get it, if you're outside the US and Canada. So for example, for Eid clothes, same concept. I am able to know tangibly how much at giving at $10, how much I'm able to support your campaign. So for example, $10 supports one child, $50 supports 5 children, and vice versa. And you can go down and see all the different giving levels. Now, what's popular to crowdfunding, you'll notice here that 111 people claim this $10 giving level. And again, that's because crowdfunding is about small donations from a lot of people. And so you want to make sure that you have, a $10 amount or 10 pounds or 5 pounds and sort of build it up from there. So that's a quick breakdown on what makes a good campaign. One of the things that we do is we help you tell your story better. So a lot of times people put a campaign together, but it's not until you get on the phone with them and you hear their story and you're like, wow, that's such an amazing story. You're missing that emotion in your campaign page. What I want to talk about next is strategy. So we've talked about when is it a good idea to launch a campaign. If it's got to be tangible, you have to have publicity in mind and partnerships, 1 to 20K, a team on board, and you've got to be able to tell your story in an effective way. Now, what I want to focus on is strategy. What does it take to have a successful campaign? What's the strategy that you need to make this happen? Really, 4 key points. Number 1, there is amazing barakah with having a team on board. And I think Brother Muhammad already mentioned this, but you want to have a team. Teams, campaigns that have teams raise twice as much as projects without teams. And this is key because you're able to, again, pool in everybody's network to make something happen. Number 2, you want to create a hit list. So one thing to think about is a lot of the work actually happens even before you officially launch. And this is not new to, any social project, right? You've got to do your research, you've got to reach out, you've got to see what else is happening, what are the other case studies. With crowdfunding, it's the same idea. So we often tell people to create what we call a hit list. So through this hit list, you identify your potential donors and influencers. So for example, you might say, I have 10 people that I know from my family that I can reach out to be one of the first supporters. I have 10 people a part of my Masjid Quran group. I have 10 people part of my book club. And you create a list between yourself and your whole team, and everybody commits to reaching out to those people. And this is very, very important because when you notice when I talk about number 3, is that there are so many causes happening right now, and all the time people are bombarded, support this, support that, and you have to be able to break through that noise. And the way to do that is to reach out to those potential donors and influencers even before you go live. So, let's say you're launching your campaign next week or in 2 weeks, you send a personal message to, for example, myself or Brother Muhammad, whoever, you say, hey, assalamu alaikum, I'm launching this hijab book, this getting ready hijab book for Muslim girls because I want to make it easy for them to be able to decide to wear hijab, or make it easy for them to, in terms of like telling their friends what hijab means. And can I count on you to be one of the first people to support or share my campaign when I go live? So when you've done that, is that what's happening here is that like I'm getting your email or your text or your phone call, and I feel special, right? You've reached out to me personally to ask for my support before you went live, and I'm more likely to commit. In fact, 50% more likely to commit to supporting your campaign. And so if you do this right, you can actually line up 20 to 30% of your support from day one. And the reason why that's important is nobody wants to be the first person to support anything. So if you have a social project and you've only got 2 people on board or 3 people or 4 donors, that doesn't look exciting. But if I come to your crowdfunding campaign, I see that you've got already 50 supporters, 20% of your funding on day one, that legitimizes your campaign to me as somebody who might not know exactly, who you are or what your campaign is about. So it's really important to reach out in advance and basically secure pre-commitments. Now, another thing you want to think about is the bystander effect. It's actually quite deadly. And what I mean by this is if I ask 100 people to do something it's rare that all 100 will say yes. So oftentimes when we just share campaigns or projects on Facebook and Twitter, and we say, hey, we launched this campaign, and we just do what we call mass sharing, so just blasting it on Twitter, blasting it on Facebook, it's good for getting the word out, but what ends up happening is we call the bystander effect, is that it diffuses responsibility. It's not like you're talking to me specifically to help you out. You're talking to everybody else, so somebody else will support. And this is a very common phenomena when you're dealing with people. When you ask a lot of people to do something, it's always the case that everybody will just expect someone else to step up. And so while it's important to do mass sharing to get your campaign out and to reach out to people, you still should also do those one-on-one calls to action, picking up the phone, sending those messages, reaching out to people personally to get on board with your campaign. And last but not least, you need persistent follow-up. So a lot of times people want to support, they just forget, and they're busy. We all know Ramadan is a crazy month. And so think of it like we think of crowdfunding like a garden. You want to plant your seeds in advance, kind of prepare your crowd, let them know that you have this initiative that you're working on and you want them to be one of your first supporters. And then you're able to harvest those, the fruits of those seeds a couple weeks into Ramadan. So you have to be persistent. You have to follow up. And you have to remember that sometimes people are just busy. It's just a matter of letting them know gently, hey, we've got 5 days left. We've got 2 days left, to make our campaign happen. So a couple of quick points. Now, everything I mentioned here actually is very much relevant to any social project. So I'm talking about this specifically from the crowdfunding space, but a lot of these suggestions are things that you can take back to any project or campaign you're working on, especially, the bystander effect. When you're organizing people, you've got to make sure to let people know exactly how you want them to support and reach out in a very personal way. So a few quick facts about crowdfunding. Sadly, only 10%, less than 10% of campaigns hit their goal in the crowdfunding world. However, we have about a 40 to 50% success rate. And that's because we assign you a coach that walks you through it. So one thing to think about is, again, it's not necessarily about the fundraise. It's not about how much you raise. It's also about publicity and those partnerships. Two, it's crazy. So like the first and last 3 days generally is when you get the most funds. I talked about how it's everyone, lots of donations from small donors. And obviously it's not rocket science. So sometimes, Facebook and Twitter still don't beat a good old fashioned phone call. Couple last thoughts. You have to be passionate. Crowdfunding is like a roller coaster. The first week you're excited. The second week you're like, is this even a good idea? What am I thinking? The third week you get excited. The fourth week, all of the support pours in. So you have to be passionate. You have to be able to ride that roller coaster. You need to have a team on board. And I always tell people, give yourself 1 to 2 weeks ahead of time just to work on this. 1 week to kind of put the campaign together, another week to start reaching out to people. Some people are able to do it in a week. But give yourself some time to prepare. You never just want to launch a campaign. Like I said, you don't just garden. You usually have to prepare your garden. You have to plant the seeds. So think of it in that same way. Number 4, you have to remember that this is about emotions and not so much about logical components of the campaign. So a lot of times people get into like specifications and dimensions and what exactly they're doing and in terms of like a set schedule. And that's okay. And that's great. But remember that people are going to give because they're emotionally connected to what you're doing. Not necessarily, like logically, it doesn't make sense to give away my time and money, but people give for emotional reasons, not logical reasons. So always remember that in the beginning, that tagline, that headers, that first paragraph, you have to tell your story. You have to tell exactly what is it that you're doing and why is it important to support it? Why should I care to be part of your social project, right? Because that's what's going to make people make the decision to say, you know what, I want to support this campaign. And then, of course, you can list the rest of the details in terms of, all the logistics of this specific campaign on the bottom. 4, don't quit. Like I said, it's a roller coaster, so there'll be parts of it that you're not sure about. But like I said, there's going to be just like in the Ramadan, there's a normal dip, like around day 14, 15. In crowdfunding, there's also a dip in terms of the second and third week where you might not raise as much funds, but you've got to basically just push through it. Now, last but not least, have fun. I mean, it's going to be 30 days. You're going to be pushing and promoting a certain campaign, and you'll be surprised at the types of people who will reach out to you and just knock your door and say, hey, I love what you're doing. How can I be part of this? In terms of getting started, really simple. You just create a campaign and you submit it. And within 24 to 48 hours, we assign you an expert campaign coach. This is complimentary, so there's no fees in terms of campaign coaches. And the coach gets on the phone with you and says, all right, Assalamu alaikum, Brother Muhammad, checked out your campaign. I'm going to share best strategies for success for you during your campaign. And they'll help you tell your story. They'll help you work on your strategy. And then they'll send that feedback to you. You make those changes and you go live. And this coach stays in touch with you from the beginning of the campaign till you actually wrap up the campaign and share suggestions as you go forward. And also other case studies that we've had so that you're supported from day one. And that's because we know that sometimes if you're doing your own social project or your own campaign, it can be scary. You're putting yourself out there, you're putting, you're reaching out to people, but it's important that you have somebody on board from our team to walk you through it. The last point I want to mention, and then I'm going to hand over to you, Brother Muhammad, is a lot of times, people think about, I don't have funds. I'm just this, I'm just that. Well, I think one thing that we want to help you realize is that your good counts. So whether you give $10 or $5 or you create a campaign yourself, think of the Prophet ﷺ's hadith of the believers like rain. Wherever he goes, he brings goodness. And so as long as you're able to do what you can within your time and your capacity, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so appreciative of that. And with that, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment box below or send us a message. Make sure to mention Productive Muslim in the subject line so that we're able to know that you're speaking in reference to this webinar. And I think with that being said, I'm going to hand it back to you, Muhammad.
All right, Amani, mashallah, that was amazing. I mean, I personally learned a lot. Just even I've gone through the process of Launch Good and launched one of my projects a few months ago now. But it was just I learned a lot. Guys, did you learn a lot today? Was this practical? Was this useful to basically launch your own social productive project? Do you think now you're more empowered? Do you think you're ready to do your own thing now, inshallah ta'ala? Okay, awesome. There's a poll question I put, who's interested to start a Launch Good campaign to start a socially productive project from Ramadan? You can vote yes or no, just so we can get an idea of numbers so that Amani knows her email will be flooded with people saying that, yep, we're going to be ready to start our own Launch Good campaign to something very social productive. And don't worry about it. Like, again, soon, it's another way for you to become socially productive this Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. So we want to share, again, these are practical tips. These are resources you have in your hands. Our goal at Productive Muslim is and at Launch Good is to make sure that you lead your best capacity, inshallah ta'ala. So we have Productive Muslim Academy, which is your personal and productivity platform to develop you. So if you're not sure how to manage your time, how to stay motivated, how to set goals, that sort of that the internal personal development stuff, how to be more productive, how to focus, not get distracted, then Productive Muslim Academy is your platform. So check out productiveacademy.com, subscribe, be part of our platform, and then you can basically get all the skills, soft skills that will help you launch this amazing project. And of course, Launch Good is your platform for you to raise the funds you need to develop your social. Again, it doesn't matter, I'm going to ask Amani perhaps a question. We have a global audience. You think that our global audience, doesn't matter where they're from, can they all be part of the Launch Good? Can they set up Launch Good?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had campaigns in over 50 countries. So as long as there's a cause that's important, we'll work with you to make sure that you can get the funds. And anybody from around the world can support as long as they have access to a credit card and they have access to an online connection.
Awesome. So I think, Amanda, before we go to Q&A, I think you had an announcement about something called the Ramadan Challenge. Yes. And let's know about it, inshallah.
Absolutely. So you typically have two cases. So you've got folks who, for example, say, you know what, I don't have much time. And when I talk to people, they say, what I can't give from my time, I give from my treasure, right? And so even if you can't launch a specific campaign this Ramadan, or you're not sure yet, you don't know if you want to take that first step, I highly encourage you to join the Launch Good Ramadan Challenge. And there's that green button right below the screen that explains what the challenge is all about. So essentially, we're in the teaser phase. We're gonna actually open up signups on Friday. But if you join the challenge, you're able to be one of the first people to get access to that. So the way the challenge works is that for 30 days, we'll send you 30 awesome projects from across the world. And you're just, the idea here is two things. One, each campaign will help inspire you. So you get to see 30 examples of people doing good across the world. And you might say, hey, actually, I never thought I could do that. I want to do the same thing in my country or my state or wherever. The second thing that we ask is that you commit to giving at least $1 or £1 to every single campaign. So even if you're a student or you're a doctor or engineer, whichever stage in your life, the idea here is that even just $1 to each one of these campaigns, you've just committed 30 acts of sadaqah jariyah for 30 days, and you're able to be part of this collective power of good happening across the world.
Inshallah. So guys, again, there's a green button underneath this video called Join Launch Good Ramadan Challenge. Highly recommend you to do. Last year, I actually joined this challenge. Like, it was this $1 every day for Ramadan. And it was like amazing because, normally we kind of give charity, the same charity is going to, to fundraise for masjid, fundraise for school. But the last one, the Ramadan was amazing because every day I saw an amazing project, which I never thought of, that was actually beneficial, whether it's a book or a project or Eid clothes or a film that will help fight Islamophobia or something. So many projects that are amazing, and they, like Amanda said, they are sadaqah jariyah because they're part of this beneficial sadaqah that is helping people, inshallah. So I really recommend you guys to join this challenge. And again, $1 a day for 30 days, and you feel like you're part of 30 different projects. It can be very, very powerful. So and of course, I highly encourage you, if you can, sit down tonight and brainstorm ways to launch your own social product, because it's really, there's something sweet about you being of service of others. And this is what I really want all of us, inshallah, I'll come out of here with something that, I'm going to do something special. It could be as small as I'm going to do one iftar at an orphanage, or I'm going to just invite my family over and going to cook everything, or I'm going to make sure that shoes in the masjid are properly put to Tarawih. It could be anything small, or it could be major, like, supporting, Eid clothes for a whole village in the world, inshallah. So there's some amazing projects, inshallah. Hope you guys check out launchgood.com. And if you want the sort of the personal motivation, the personal development type work that will help you just, get these projects, because sometimes you might have the idea, but you feel you're distracted, you feel you cannot focus, you feel like you cannot wake up early, you don't have to manage your time. Then Productive Muslim Academy is your platform, inshallah, to basically develop, inshallah. So with that, let's jump into the Q&A.
Go for it.
Amani, is there something?
I'm just saying, I actually used to listen to Brother Muhammad's productivity advice back when I was, 17, 18. And so I really think it helped me set a foundation for some of the work I'm doing today. So I never thought I'd be on a webinar with Brother Muhammad speaking about our work. But again, it's about planting those seeds, and you don't know where it's going to take you afterwards.
Awesome. Alhamdulillah. So I'm going to do some rapid fire answering questions. So I'm going to pick up the first question, you pick up the second question, and I'm going to try to rapid fire as much as possible. Try to, answer as many of these questions as possible. So the first question, we got 28 votes. Assalamu alaikum. As a college student, how can I balance my studies and the social project I could do during Ramadan? And how can I motivate myself, my family to help us support me? Now, again, first of all, I like that point that Amani mentioned. Make it very, very specific. Don't say, for example, I'm going to help my local masjid. That's too broad. Or I'm going to help a local school. That's too broad. Make it very, very specific. And what's a specific example? I'm going to ensure that 30 children in my local masjid, for example, or 30 orphans in the local orphanage will have iftar every single day, for example. Very, very specific. Then okay, based on the specificity of this, let me build up a practical practical way to implement this project. How much time does it need? Who can I involve? Because sometimes even with family, you might say, I want to help the local masjid or like help a local orphanage. And they're like, yeah, okay, nice, good luck. But you tell them, hey, I've got this 30 kids, I want to support in Ramadan. Here's how, can you help me? People are more willing to come and support you because they have something very, very tangible. So that's one of my advice to you, make it very, very specific. And then that will involve people get involved, and you can work out exactly how much time you can dedicate to it, inshallah. So hope that answers your question, Farjana. How's it practical? Amani, you're next to your question.
Sure. So I'm looking at the second, the one with 19 votes. If we organize and plan our time, if we're working individuals to be part of the social project, what type of social projects would you recommend for the busy individual? So again, there's two ways to look at this. There's joining already existing efforts. So for example, instead of creating a campaign from scratch and instead of trying to create a nonprofit or some sort of NGO to do whatever cause you're looking at, there's probably people already doing that work, and it's just a matter of partnering up with them. So many times you could just help them focus on something very specific that they don't have the capacity to do, but you took it on yourself to help them out with, and then have the funds or send the funds to them. So that's one way, is to support an already existing effort. So for example, Islamic Relief Worldwide, it has this campaign, and you want to support local efforts, or you're working on, for example, giving iftar to 50 people in your local community. Very easy to do that. Another thing to think about is, if you don't have the time to put something together, support the campaigns that are already doing that. So whether it's the Giving Challenge or finding causes that are amazing, just giving them a little bit of, £5-10, that goes a long way.
Awesome. I think the next one also for you, what's the simplest and easiest social projects having the most impact on ourselves? Now, you've seen a lot of projects launch good. Which one of the things was so simple, but I'm thinking, wow, that's genius. I never thought of that. Yeah,
that's like asking me what my favorite book is. That's a hard question because I think the concept here is that the one that we found had the most impact was the 30-day giving challenge, because you launch a campaign and your campaign gets featured in the 30-day giving challenge. Every day, over 100, when we feature those campaigns, you'd get donors from across the world. Instantly, a campaign would have over 100 supporters, and everybody was able to help plant a seed within that initiative. So sometimes it's focusing on those deeds that are continuous and keep going, more so than, and that's actually more sustainable than just giving £500 or $500 and saying, you know what, I'm tapped out. I'm tapped out in terms of my time and my energy and all of that. So I say, think about those small things that you can do, that even if it's the most draining day, you're still able to make it happen.
Brilliant, excellent. So I'll pick up the next one on, I have always been a supporter of many social projects, but it never occurred to me to start my own. I also such part of the work of large organizations that we donate to our charity. So how do I, as a single person, make a difference in social project and benefit others? 2, what are the defining factors of a successful social project? And 3, what if there are already 5 different people doing the same project in my area? So I'll let Amanda answer the second part and the third part. Also the first part, how do I as a single person make a difference in a social project can benefit others? For me personally, again, with all respect to the organizations, charity organizations, it is very important that these organizations have the capacity and the skills and have the time and have the staff to really make things happen. But I also admire people who have that human connection when it comes to charity. For example, you might find there's an elderly lady in your neighborhood that no one visits, and you're the one person who goes visit her every single day. Or you might notice that there is, a single mom or a single dad in your neighborhood, and they just need some time off, and you say, I'm going to volunteer and babysit that child while she sort of, has time off. Some of that human connection is what I feel we kind of crave. Nowadays, we kind of go into this click mode of just clicking around and donating and not really feeling that human connection. That's why I personally love the Launch Good project, because Launch Good, even though it's online, but it really tells the story behind this project. So you see the story, the struggle, what people went through to develop, to basically to donate, to come up with the project, and you feel like you're part of something. I think that is what was important. So yes, even though I say still continue to support, of course, the large organizations, the Islamic Reliefs, the big organizations, because they're doing amazing work we should always support, but also think about on your personal scale. What is it that you're going to do on a personal scale? This is in my email I sent out yesterday. I said, how can you make your Ramadan more memorable? Because the way you remember last Ramadan is by saying, you know what? Last Ramadan, I did an iftar in an orphanage. Or last Ramadan, I, for example, made sure that, one of the projects we recently received was I made sure that people did not throw away bottled water after Tarawih, and made sure that they had recycled drinking water bottles. I mean, something as simple as that, as practical as that, that's what made it a shot. Amani, for the second.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 and 3, what are the defining factors of a successful social project? And what if there are already 5 different people doing the same thing in my area? In terms of the defining factors of a successful project, I would say, number 1, it's got to be realistic, right? If you start with a realistic goal amount, like Brother Muhammad talked about, instead of saying, I want to support refugees, it's too vague, but I want to support 20 refugees or 10 refugees, you've instantly made the scope something that you could actually take on and work on, right? I tell this often that sometimes people try to raise thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I tell them that it's not exciting for people to support something where they don't know how much of an impact they're being able to give or offer. So if I support a campaign at £5 and I'm only raising £5,000, I can see the impact of my donation versus if I'm trying to do 100,000. So one, scope is really key to being successful. And the second thing you want to think about is emotion. Are you passionate about it? Is this a problem you're actually trying to solve? Because if not, you're, when it gets tough, you're just going to sort of quit. So that passion is really, really key. And I think both of us can talk about how, our beginnings, whether it's Launch Good or Productive Muslim, where it sounds like you're the only person in that kind of space, and you don't know if it's going anywhere. So passion keeps you going forward. The second thing is, what if there are already 5 different people doing the same project in my area? This is really key. So there are some causes that we call evergreen causes. No matter what, everybody still wants to support. Syria, Palestine, refugees, all the time people are excited about those causes. So sometimes it doesn't really matter. It's like everybody wants to make sure that everyone's able to have iftar. So those kind of causes, it's always you can always keep launching them. But another thing to think about is, if you are trying to differentiate yourself, you have to ask yourself, what is it that makes my initiative different? Why is it so important? So I'll give you a good example. There are so many Holy Quran apps. All the time you see them, right? But we had a campaign where they launched an app, but their unique difference or their differentiating factor was that they help you find a verse with every moment. So you're feeling sad, their app generates the right verses that can help you connect with those moments. You're feeling motivated, you're feeling etc. They find the right verse that helps you connect with that moment. Has all the other bells and whistles, but that was their differentiating factor. So it's important to ask yourself, can I make it better? Can I make it cheaper, faster? Or can I build something that other people aren't doing? So think about that in terms of some of your own causes.
Awesome. Okay, I guess that comes to the end of this webinar. Again, thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Manny, for joining us live and being part of this. And Manny learned a lot. Jazakallah khair. And I hope everybody else learned a lot and found it very, very practical. Again, really, really excited. I want you guys to have a memorable Ramadan. Think about social projects. Think about how you can launch a social project. You got 15 days or less, just about 15 days to think, to plan, to prepare, so that you can, when Ramadan hits, you can really make the most of it and maximize your reward in Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. Again, we are here to support you with this Productive Muslim Academy, where we're helping you with the soft skills to help you go through this project, go through this process, and be motivated and focused and have the energy and the time to make this happen. Or Launch Good, where it's helping you with launching and basically crowdfunding your project, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair. The recording of this webinar will be available as soon as we just jump off. They'll be available on this platform. So you can come back to this page anytime, watch the page. And of course, don't forget to join this big green button right underneath here. Join the Launch Ramadan Challenge. Just jump in. If you really don't have a project, at least be part of the Launch Good Ramadan Challenge. $1 a day for 30 days and see the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and just see the amazing project around the world. Really excited with Ramadan. And thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair. Subhanak Allahumma hamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.